Hello there, everybody, and welcome back to the GSL-English Podcast. My name is, of course, Gideon, and in this week's episodes, we have a very special guest joining us. So don't worry, it's not just another week of listening to me natter on about nothing and expressing my opinions. No, this week I brought the cavalry in. We have Benjamin from English Life with Benjamin joining us, and we really have a fantastic discussion together. You might be familiar with Benjamin. I'm sure most of you are if you follow different English learning pages on social media, on Instagram. You will most likely be familiar with Benjamin, a brilliant creator that helps followers and different ones to learn English in a natural and authentic way. So we have a great discussion in today's podcast. We talk about our journey with teaching, so both of us, where we started and how we got into it. Talk about the trials when perhaps learning English, and we share some advice that can possibly help. But also we talk about social media, how we both started on social media, but particularly for Benjamin, we talk about his journey and his advice and what he would recommend if you wanted to grow or if you wanted to start a social media page. But also you'll see that the advice that he gives and that we talk about really translates to many different topics, and it can all be applied to learning the English language. So I hope you enjoy this podcast today. I'm sure you will. I thoroughly enjoyed preparing it. So sit back, relax, and enjoy our conversation together. So thank you so much for joining me today, Benjamin. I really appreciate it. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for the opportunity. And I think we have a lot to talk about.
We really do. We really do. But firstly, I must say it's a real honor to have you here with me today because, of course, it's quite a new podcast. I'm new to all of this. And you're actually only my second guest, and the first one being my wife. So
I think that's quite tough competition to beat the number one. So I'm pretty honored to be the second.
Yeah, exactly. And when she knew that I was having another guest on, I think she was a little bit, oh, what was wrong with me? But I can't have her every week.
I guess she thought she was going to be the regular.
Yeah, but no. But yeah, no, thank you so much for joining me today. I really, really do appreciate it. So where are you actually joining us from in the world today?
I'm joining you from Germany today, and I've been there for let's say a year and a half.
Okay.
Originally, I think we are from quite similar places. I'm from London, and you're not too far from there, right?
No, yeah, I'm just outside of London in Kent, so I can get to the centre of London in about 25 minutes by train.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, so quite similar. And been in Spain and now in Germany. So yes, that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah. Have you picked up any of the languages, or that's a challenge?
Oh, you're putting me on the spot so quickly, aren't you?
After you.
Thank you. I would say that my Spanish is pretty decent. So that I was there for 5 years. That plays a big role.
Right.
German, not so strong, but I'm hoping that in the long term, it will pick up.
Yeah, well, it takes time. It takes time, doesn't it? Especially, being, which we'll talk about in a bit, but you are an English teacher. You spend so much time teaching that you don't spend a lot of time taking in, do we?
Absolutely not. And I think people love to take the opportunity to practice English with you. And fortunately, English is the global language, and in Germany, many people are very confident, very comfortable in English. So it gives me that escape, but I should put more pressure on myself, just like we say to all of the students.
Exactly. It is kind of a big thing, do as I say, not as I actually do.
I do. Exactly.
Yeah, I do that. Same with all of my students. I always feel like a little bit of a hypocrite because I give all of this advice. So what part of London were you living in, or where are you from?
Sure. Originally kind of Fulham area, but this was, over 20 years ago. And then we moved further out towards Surrey, which is kind of, borderline. It's zone 6 of London, but it's also the beginning of one of the counties. And that was where I spent most of my teenage years and before I left home.
Oh, that's a beautiful part, isn't it? Sorry, it's,
It, it is, yeah. It's pretty beautiful and a lot of nature and a very different vibe to London for sure. But I think Kent shares many similarities, doesn't it?
it does, yeah. Because I know I used to, not anymore as I'm getting older, but I used to love mountain biking,
Okay.
and I know we used to go to the Surrey Hills mountain, and it was great. It was beautiful. Whereas Kent isn't quite as hilly, but it is really beautiful.
It does the job.
It does the job.
It does the job.
Yeah, no, it's yeah, it's I think they kind of call it the Garden of England, Kent.
Definitely. That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah. I mean, some areas most definitely not.
Yeah.
Depends where you go. But
For sure.
generally, yeah.
You're portraying a very good image of where we're from. They're going to
I
have very high expectations if they go there.
yeah, and I think they'll be quickly disappointed. Um, but yeah, very good. So of course you've got a very successful Instagram page. So congratulations,
Thank you very much.
English
Thank you.
Life with Benjamin. And so of course you are an English teacher.
Yes, yes.
I'd love to know how did you get into that? How did you start teaching? Was it something that you always wanted to do? Was it something you fell into? Yeah, what's kind of your story?
Yes, interesting. Thank you for asking. And I think when we first spoke, we mentioned that we share quite many similarities when it
Yeah,
comes to the journey. For me, I can say I fell into it, but in some ways I didn't because I was always involved in teaching others. That was just in a different domain, football,
right.
athletics, personal training, fitness. So I think naturally I was able to speak to people and have a good rapport. But the English teaching came later on through added studies because I wanted to leave the UK. I wanted to live in other parts of the world. And that was the easiest route to making that happen. That's what I thought at the time. And I just thought, get my feet on the ground, get started, find some opportunities. And then it kind of, over time, it snowballs from there, doesn't it? I mean, did you share the similar experience?
I did. Yeah, it's actually. I know we had a brief conversation in the middle of the week, but our experiences are very oddly similar. It's quite bizarre actually. But yeah, I was the same as you. You know, I think well, actually not in the sense of I was actually a builder,
Yes.
which in American English, of course, they refer to it as construction. But that was my job. I was a builder, and then through the want of traveling and also meeting my wife, um, got into teaching, kind
There
of
we go.
fell into it because like someone presented it as an option to me,
Yes,
and then and
exactly.
like you said, you used a great expression to get your feet on the ground, you know, just to kind of yeah,
Give
get
it a
comfortable.
try, get stuck in. And I do remember my first job. I won't name the academy for fear of shaming them, but it was Valencia. And it was, I was 2 weeks in, and I remember I did a little test, written test, a little writing activity, grammar activity, and an interview. And then they offered me the job, and it was about 40 plus hours a week. I wasn't very experienced at that time. I was definitely thrown in at the deep end. I can't say the pay was great either,
Yep.
but it was an opportunity to learn. And I can say that there was many difficulties in the beginning, but it makes you the person, I guess, and the teacher that you become through those difficult challenges.
I think that's a really interesting point, and it's so true. And I think every English teacher's journey involves that kind of experience where it is almost an art, isn't it? That you have to learn, and it's a very personal thing.
Definitely.
Because I remember I was the same. I got my first job kind of thrown into it,
Yes.
and I had my, of course, degree in teaching. But
Yes.
actually, I realized I didn't know how to teach, so I was YouTubing actually how to teach a class online, and it
Yes.
was a weird experience. But over time, you just kind of learn your own little art and your own
Correct.
style.
Spot on, spot on. But don't you think as well, like for me, the success comes from those soft skills.
Yeah,
You know, it's quite not easy, but you're able to get the knowledge that you need to teach a class, the grammar, the vocabulary. That's something that you can obtain in a period of time. But knowing how to speak to people from different countries and different backgrounds, how to deal with those differences, I think is what sets you apart from other teachers,
yeah,
and making people feel comfortable, safe, the right techniques. Like if I had to say what were the keys, it was, I don't know how it happened, but those ability to figure those things out was the most important thing looking back on it.
Yeah, that's a really interesting insight, and I would completely agree with you.
Yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because you realize over time that teaching, it's not a one size fits all. Every student is different, and I think as time goes on, you learn how to read students, how to work with their personality, with their style, and once you learn that, for me, that was when the real enjoyment of teaching came, and that adapting and changing. That's when I really learned to love it.
Definitely. But isn't there always a bit of a period in the beginning of, fear, nervousness, stress? Because I remember in the beginning always trying to predict what was going to come, what questions would they ask, what things would happen, even planning my lesson down to the very most minute of details. Whereas now it's you try to go with the flow, because if you're too rigid, you end up breaking, or, it doesn't work out as planned.
Exactly. It actually reminds me of an experience. I remember one of my first classes with it was a lovely young lad. I can't quite remember where he was from, but I remember I prepared all of the class, like you said, word for word. I think we were looking at prepositions or something like that. And it was a half an hour class, but from what I prepared, I was done in 10 minutes because I was so nervous. And then
Exactly, you rush through it.
yeah. And then I remember thinking, oh no, what are we going to do? And actually,
Yes.
we just ended up talking.
There
And
we
it
go.
ended up being great. And it was a real immediate kind of eye opener for me that teaching isn't just about teaching in a sense. It's about communication and getting to know someone.
Spot on, most definitely. Great point. And I think we've both experienced that too many times.
Oh, I completely agree. So have you kind of found a teaching method that really works for you? I know you said you like to keep it free flowing and open, but have you found a method that works for you, or an
It's
approach?
evolved over time, definitely. And I think it's always changing. Focusing more on the small groups at the moment for
Right.
many reasons.
Mhm.
Obviously, I need to put the right people together and with the right goals. After that, I think I need to have engaging topics. I need to not just I need to make them think. I was actually kind of pondering this earlier, which is I want to take away the feeling that they're in a class, and I want them just to feel like they're in a normal situation with other people using the language. And then we're adding to that new vocabulary, little correction here and there.
Mm.
But I don't necessarily, I think the magic comes when they don't feel like they're actually in a class.
Mhm.
We had one the other day and they were talking about stoicism or something like that. Quite interesting. I had a few thoughts on that topic, and everyone had a different opinion, and everyone was kind of like trying to say their part, give their opinion. And you forgot that you were in an English class for a moment. So I would say for me, that's the goal, but it doesn't always work out like that.
Yeah. And I think that's interesting what you do because I was doing a bit of research and I love your format of your classes in the sense, as you said, they're not really classes, but you match people together and you kind of for the right group so they can benefit the most from that. And it seems to me that you really focus on expressing yourself. Is that right?
I would like to think so.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, other students seem to need different things, and I try to tick all the boxes. If
Yeah.
they have grammar weaknesses, of course, we do that. But at the end of the day, I feel like most people just lack the courage or the ability or the confidence or the practice to communicate. However, I don't want it to be a glorified speaking club. I
Yes.
want to try and have a structure and a way of them speaking rather than just saying, okay, tell me what you think about your favorite holiday of the year.
Yeah.
That might not bring them to the point that they want to come to. But what is your take on it?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely brilliant because there is a balance between speaking clubs, which are great format, but they
Yes.
are speaking clubs. They're to speak, but the way you say it's more of an advanced kind of approach to that, and really helping ones not just to write a kind of a stage to express yourself, but helping them, guiding them across that and the sentence structures and
Yeah,
the best way of doing that. And I think
definitely.
that is a lot of the reason why people are learning English or a language. it is essentially comes down to communication, doesn't it? It's
Definitely. It's also can be quite confusing because people say they want one thing and then they really kind of want something else. So
yes.
I feel like we become psychologists, therapists. I mean, we have to decipher what they're looking for and try to give them that and make them happy and ticking all of those boxes.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And clearly, you're doing a great job at that because you've got such a great rapport on Instagram and social media.
And you
Um,
too.
oh yeah, it's getting there. It's getting there
Beautiful,
slowly.
beautiful,
But
beautiful.
yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate that. Do you it kind of we're going to go on to talk about social media in a moment. I think it's a topic that interests us both. But do you think it's possible if someone said, "Look, I'm not able to take classes. I'm not able to do this, but I've got Instagram. I've got I
Yeah.
don't know, TikTok." Do you think it's possible for someone to learn English on social media, or is it an aid to the process?
I think I could give you the answer that they might want to hear, but that
Uh,
won't be the honest
yeah,
answer.
yeah,
I would say it's a beautiful tool, but actually, one student was telling me in the same class when we spoke about the Stoicism, she said, there are so many teachers online, and unfortunately, you cannot know what information is true and what information is not.
right.
And that's not an attack, but that's just a fact that you have a wide range of different answers, and you need someone you trust to say, okay, I'm going to believe that what he says or she says is the truth or the best approach. So I think Instagram and YouTube can be a beautiful aid, but I would say try to pick the people that you have a good energy with and try to trust them, and don't try and listen to 100 different people, because that's going to confuse you, because it confuses me, and we're British and we get confused by all of these different answers.
Yeah, I think the way you put that is really it's lovely. You know, you said it's a tool,
Yeah.
it's an
Yes.
aid. It makes me think. You know, going back to building, if I was going to install a kitchen, if
Yeah.
I just turned up with a hammer, um, I can probably do some demolition, but for the rest of the work, for a whole kind of balanced job, I'm going to need a lot more tools. And perhaps it's the same with learning English. You know, it's just another tool, but just on its own, it needs more.
Definitely. And how do you feel about the work you do on Instagram, the content that you provide, and just that whole experience? I mean, if we just touch upon that a little bit.
Yeah, I really enjoy it. I really I've learned to enjoy it. Let me just say, it
It's a
was
process.
it is it's an emotional roller coaster.
It is.
If you let it be, yeah, I really enjoy it. I I think the biggest thing I enjoy is the interaction I get with people on quite a honest level, and quite not a surface level. I find that the connections that I've built with people through Instagram, through students, um, it's opened up a new kind of dimension to
Definitely.
teaching. And as you said, not only teaching, but also being a bit of a friend to some that can help them along the way. But the actual creation process, I really enjoy coming up with content, recording, editing,
Very
meeting
good.
different ones like yourself. Like we
Exactly.
wouldn't have met if it wasn't through social media. And
It's incredible,
yeah,
and you're spot on. And it's sometimes I think there's the tendency to think that social media is like I don't know, not a gimmick, but it's
yeah,
just it's something that we spend too much time on, and we should limit our usage of. And we just see silly things on there, but it really is a way of connecting with incredible people and really growing as a person
ah,
if you pick the right usage of it. And you just got to be a little bit savvy and careful with what you choose.
yes, I love that word savvy. You
Savvy.
know, yeah, that's a great word. Yeah, being on the
Definitely.
ball. You know, just trying to keep your wits about you
Good one.
is how you use social media.
Yeah,
Um, because it is actually let's talk about that for a while. Because
let's
I
do
mean,
it.
your journey on social media, I really would love to hear about it. Where did it start? Where did you? Was it just one day you thought, give it a go? Yeah, I'm really intrigued.
Definitely. It's a tale of two stories. And I must caveat everything by saying that I don't do it on my own. And I told you about that in our meeting, because I don't want people to think that it's just something easy that you do part-time and it just brings you instant success, because that's not the case. And also you must be extremely consistent. So I remember it started one day. I had a, apartment in Spain. COVID was, I think, like the lockdown had finished, so we were able to go out, but the restraints were still there. And or maybe backing up, maybe it was right in the middle of COVID.
Right.
And it was basically, I couldn't continue my work at my academy because the doors were closed. And it was either going back to London and, seeing what London had in store for me, which I wasn't very positive about, or finding students online, because everything I was doing was face to face. So I remember being in the car park, which had quite a nice view, had the phone in front of my hand, and I went on TikTok and I said like 5 British words, for example.
Wow.
Yeah. And I did a bit of research and I realized that the first 5 videos on TikTok are very crucial for your growth and for your audience. So they went well. And I think that TikTok was the beginning, and then, moving on to other platforms. At some point, my girlfriend at the time, wife now, wanted to be involved, wanted to help, to support, and she was quite good with that type of thing. And she helped with the editing.
Right.
And we're in a very different place now to what it was then, but that was the beginning of this very incredible but long journey.
Wow. So
Yes.
it's interesting that it was in lockdown that, and it was the same for me. I think it was the same actually for many, whether it's whatever niche it is. We didn't know what to do, did we? Because doors were locked to the schools. We had no other choice.
Exactly. And you were looking for, I think it was the first opportunity where people thought, I can do something else, or I can explore something new. And what was the benefit? Everyone was on their phones at that time. So the audience, the reach was incredible. And so you took that opportunity. And I think TikTok was kind of in its beginning stages of blowing up at that moment. So everything aligned at that time. I would say now it's much more competitive and challenging if you want to take that to the next level. But please tell me your experience, because I always like hearing about it.
Yeah, again, it's bizarrely similar. It's like we're reading the same notes of life. But yeah, I was actually living in Dominican Republic at the time with my wife, and COVID hit the Dominican Republic really hard, and so the whole country locked down. And the issue there was that, unfortunately, because a lot of people live day by day,
Yes.
once it locked down, it created a little bit of instability. So we had to lock into our apartment.
Oh no.
Couldn't leave for
Yes.
probably 3 months.
You could go to the supermarket, I presume, and that was it.
Yes, but the issue was they gave you an hour a day to go to the supermarket, but the queue outside the supermarket was an hour and a half.
Oh no.
So we actually, me and a few friends, we just went down and kind of stockpiled, which means, to just get as much as we could
Yes.
for those 3 months. And we were newly married, and we got back from honeymoon.
Wow.
And then that was it.
Boom.
Boom, lockdown. So I was trying to find work. I had a little bit of savings at that time because I'd sold my business.
Good.
But I knew that wasn't going to last, and we didn't know how long COVID was going to go on. And I was going through Instagram. I was teaching English at this time, and I just thought, oh, do you know what? Yeah, let's give it a go. So
Yes.
I just did. It was a really stupid post of my face. It's just my face saying I'm an English teacher. Yeah, and I posted it on Instagram, and I don't think anyone saw it. So I thought, oh, do you know what? I've got nothing else to do, so I'll keep trying. And then I started to just pick up a little bit of attention with it.
Yeah.
And I was extremely reluctant to show my face. Extremely, I don't know, it felt quite uncomfortable for me.
Yes.
But then I did that, and just tried to create content I thought people would like.
Yes.
And then it started to pick up some traction.
Interesting.
So
Good.
it's interesting. It's kind of similar, very similar beginnings.
Very, very, very similar. It was probably needs must.
Yes.
We felt like we had to, and for me, it was just a way of continuing my livelihood. I never had the intention of getting loads of followers. It was purely just, how can I find students internationally? How can I show them what I'm like as a teacher and hope that they want to have classes? Obviously, we're in a bit of a different position now, a little bit, but in the beginning, it was a pure intention. It was never to be Instagram famous or anything like that. That was just a byproduct of trying to create things that people might want to watch in the English, learning field.
Yeah. And I think that was so true. It was a pure intention, and I can relate to that. It wasn't to be famous. It wasn't to be recognized, or it was just to actually to get by.
Yeah,
Kind of.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Now, there's one thing you said, it kind of all aligned, and I would agree with you. And we spoke about this, that I got very fortunate with timing. It wasn't
Mhm.
intentional, but I
Mhm.
think it was a time when everyone was on their phones, but that kind of learning English online or through social media was booming.
Correct.
So,
Correct.
so for you, when did you really start to think, oh wow, this is getting some traction. This is working.
I can't tell you the exact date. It was probably about January 22 and late 21. I believe there were certain moments. I mean, but I would also like to say that there's so much hard work consistently involved. I mean, at least every Sunday, imagine my wife and I, you're working all week, and then every Saturday and Sunday, you're recording videos, you're editing it, you're putting it up. So you're doing that consistently for at least 50 weeks of the year. And
Yes.
then you're also trying to post Monday or Wednesday or Friday. We're brainstorming, thinking of ideas. So you could say that there were certain moments where you saw an increase in the followers, and you one video got 1 million views, for example, and you think, oh, this is the moment.
Yeah.
But I would like to highlight that it was us working together and creating videos every day for 3 years that then takes you, to this point that I think is easily forgotten or not recognized from the outside. People think, oh, well, he's British, got a British accent,
Yeah.
records videos, people like it, people follow, and that's it. But I would just say from our side, the hard work and the discipline and the consistency of saying, well, even when we're traveling, we're thinking of what videos when we can do, because the goal continues to grow, I guess, for you as well.
I agree, and I think it's great to highlight that, because I think sometimes it can look, oh, lucky you.
Yeah.
Um, but because you post some 30-second reels, minute reels every day, and look at you, wow, oh, I wish I could do that. Well, as you said, there is a lot of work and a lot of sacrifice as well that I think goes into it, and you've got to really want it, and you kind of have to push through the difficult times. Because I'm sure you've experienced, like you said, you and your girlfriend or wife at that time, you spent your Sundays
Yeah.
editing or recording, and then what happens when one of those reels doesn't do well? And you think, oh well, I've just spent my Sunday. So it's the emotional toll that it takes as well. Did you find that? I don't know. We'll talk about kind of your relationship with that side of
Yeah.
it in a moment. But when you were first starting off, did you find that difficult to get used to? Some reels not doing well or some content not going viral.
100%. It's an emotional roller coaster.
Yeah.
And, in those times, I remember us always trying to think of new ways of
Yeah.
reaching people and, growing the business. We wrote 2 different ebooks. We
Oh, wow.
created cheat sheets trying to sell them on the website. We held free webinars on a Saturday about conditionals, phrasal verbs. It was like a constant process. And there was still now, like, you can say, okay, you've got 100,000 followers, 200,000, 1 million followers. Reels still don't do well in comparison to the number, or things still don't work. And it's constantly trying to figure out what's working. But I'm more at peace now than, those beginning times, because you had to push through even though there was no other choice. It was like, we don't really know what we're doing. There's not the success that we want, but there's not an option to go back. It's just keep pushing forward until something changes, because deep down you believe that it will change.
Yeah, yeah. And you have to have that. I mean, I guess that's true of anything that you want to be successful in. You have to have that heartfelt kind of feeling that this is going to work.
Yes.
Whether
Yes.
it's now, whether it's you just have that feeling. We think, well, I know this. I know I've got something here. I know this is going to work.
Isn't that hard though? I mean, I don't know about you. For me, I wouldn't say I'm like overly confident that every dream is going to come
Yeah.
true, but I'm quite naturally confident in myself. So
Yes.
I can have a belief and I can kind of normally see it in the future. Are you quite similar to me in that way, or?
Now, I would say now I'm getting older. Yes. Perhaps when I was a little bit younger, I didn't have as much of that confidence, perhaps
Yes.
that things are always going to work
Work out.
out. But
Yes.
yeah, but now I do have that. Yeah, that I'd say it's more balanced, but that kind of heartfelt desire that if I do put my mind to it and I believe in it and I trust the process,
Yes.
I will
Good.
be successful or it will work. Um, Sometimes that takes a lot of adapting. You know, it
Yes.
takes a lot of okay, well, that avenue didn't quite work. Let's go down
Yes.
another avenue.
Yes.
But being
Yes.
adaptable, I think, is part of the process.
Key point. And the reason I wanted to touch upon that is because I think even as a language learner or in anything you do, you need to see the possibility at the end of the
Yes.
road. And you can't think, oh, I'm never going to reach that moment. Now, if we think more broadly, bad things happen. You know, it could be family problems, relationship, it could be friends, it could just be life hits you really hard. So it might not be as you expected it to be, but it could be even better. And I think it's just, as you said, being adaptable, being flexible, and trying to find that belief in yourself, trying to find that confidence in yourself. And I think everything that we're talking about can apply to anyone who's trying to learn a language or achieve something that they want.
Yeah. And actually, it is the same principle, isn't it? Even if you are learning English at the moment, and I guess you're at the point where I think we all hit walls when we're learning English or language, any languages, sorry. And there is sometimes a point where you think, oh, why am I doing this? You know, I was doing really well. I was picking up vocabulary. I was starting to have conversations and I'm not progressing. I'm not
Yeah.
getting anywhere. And that is a very difficult place to be with anything that we're working on, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah. How do you kind of, I guess in English, we say, you know, you hit a wall or you
Yeah.
plateau. Do you
Yes.
have anything you do when you perhaps feel like that, or even you notice students feel like that? Is there anything you try and remind them or try and practically do?
I think I try to give them some of my, like, some positive energy and some words of assurance. And I think when the times get difficult, that's a reminder to continue, like double down on what you're
Okay.
doing
Double down.
instead of doubting. Like I would say, when things are, sometimes there can be hard moments, and it could be a moment to reassess and say, am I doing something wrong or right? True. I think there are moments of thinking about how you're doing it. But most of the time, I would say when times are tough, do more. Like,
Mm.
go further. Don't think, oh, woe is me. This is tough. I don't want to do it anymore. But say, I'm going to push through. I'm going to do it for another 3 months, and then I'll reassess. And if I'm still in the same place, maybe that's life telling you you need to change your approach. So for me, I don't like to say that I have a tough love approach, even though my father definitely gave
Oh,
me
okay. Yeah.
in a positive way, but
Yep.
you know, that was the way he raised me. But I like to say, keep going. Now isn't the time to quit. If the time to quit comes in the future, okay, but not right now. Do it only when you really have to.
Yeah. I think that's a brilliant answer. I really do.
Do you think so?
Yeah, I do. And you use that expression there, you know, woe is me, which sometimes we can look at something or a situation, compare ourselves to others and think, oh, why? You know, maybe somebody is progressing quicker than us in their journey with the English language.
Yeah.
But you know, sometimes a bit of personal tough love. Okay, well, it's not necessarily what am I doing wrong. What do I need to change?
Yeah.
You know, what you're doing might be right, but it's not the right time for that. So what do I need to change? What And as you said, if you're struggling, do more. And sometimes that's quite a difficult pill to swallow, isn't it? But it is the
Definitely.
reality.
Definitely. And this might be like a bit of a silly example, but you know, when I think about you know, you mentioned to me that you like going to the gym and it keeps you sane and it keeps your mind right, and me too. But I'm always like thinking, okay, how can I improve my fitness? How can I maybe lose
Yeah.
a few pounds and do these things? And it's very easy to say, oh, I'm doing enough, or oh, it's just I can't do any more than what I'm doing. But if I ask myself deep down, I know it's because I eat too many chocolate bars. And I
Yeah,
know,
exactly. Yeah.
But do I want to admit that to myself? And do I want to make the sacrifice to not enjoy those? That's the question that only I can answer. And maybe now I can't do it, but maybe I'll be able to do it in 6 months' time. So for me, it's like the brutal honesty with yourself. Okay, if you don't want to do it, fine. But if you search within yourself, you'll probably find the answer of what you need to do next.
Yeah, exactly. And I like what you said there. If you don't want to do it, that's fine, but accept it. And yeah, and that's that reality of it. And I
Yes.
always think as well, um, don't beat yourself up. I often try and if you hit that wall or the plateau, or you're just not getting where you want to at the pace you wanted to,
Yes.
don't be self-destructive. Don't beat yourself up. Just chill out, but then
Yeah,
think, right, what do I need to do?
definitely.
Think of it from a logical approach. Think, right, okay, I might not be where I am. Well, I might not be as successful, or coming back to social media, I'm not
Mhm.
getting as many views as I would like to, or gaining as many followers.
Yes.
Not you. Just sit back, relax, and think, what
Yeah.
can I do to change
Yes.
this?
Exactly. And if there's nothing that you can do, then just continue doing what you're doing
Yeah.
until a bright idea comes to your mind, because it will, or something will happen.
Mm.
I think, as you mentioned earlier, trusting the process. And I think we like to believe that we're in control of everything.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I don't think we are. And
No.
we just have to have faith that in whatever you want, that the time will come, the moment will come if you do the right things and the right work.
Yeah. It's true, isn't it? There is an element of everything that we're not in control of as much
Yes.
as we would like to be. So, kind of
Yes.
thinking about this in a positive light, where do you kind of see yourself in your English life with Benjamin, or your courses and your group? Where do you see it going, or do you have a plan moving ahead?
Mm. Yes and no. I
Okay.
definitely always have short and long-term goals,
Hmm.
but I wouldn't say that they're super fixed. So
Yeah.
they're open to change, and they're open to something different. For us, we want to grow this into a business that we both work on together, and I think we're getting there, and trying to bring English to as many people as possible in a positive way that doesn't bring too much stress or too much pressure, like living a healthy life, helping people, and being able to give something back, I guess, because I think the most pleasure comes from being able to help people grow, and help people learn. That's my thought at the moment.
Yeah. And I like what you said. You have some short term goals in that, but they're not fixed.
Yes.
Which is actually a great position to be in, isn't it? Because you continue working hard in that, but you actually let it organically and naturally take you in the way that it's going to go.
Definitely, definitely. But I think you touched upon it. We have to have some goal. We have to
Mm.
have something that we're working towards. But it could change. It could be different. We've got the course in April, and it'd be lovely to do another one in August, for example. So that's the plan now. But if something comes up, that's okay. We'll adapt, and we'll see why that might not work out and what's in the pipeline.
Exactly. And we spoke about this course a little bit during the week. It sounds like such a brilliant opportunity. Maybe you can just expand upon what it is you're looking to do, and it's brilliant.
Of course, of course. I would say that, well, when you're learning a language, the key point is to be immersed in it as much as possible.
Mm.
And we don't all have the luxury of being in the UK or being around English speakers. So that was the main motivation behind creating it, and giving people an opportunity to explore our city. Even if we're
Yeah.
Surrey and Kent, we still consider it a city that we know very well. And so, and bonding with people who share the same values as you, being with 12 or 11 other people, for example, who all have a similar level and all want to achieve the same thing, is quite a memorable and beautiful experience. And so that was the reason behind creating it, and trying to put all the pieces together.
Oh, well, I wish you all the best with it. I think it's such a great idea. And I think what you're bringing to people is often an element that is missed when learning any language, and it's immersion. Because often we don't get the opportunities. And often
Yes.
we sit at home, we study on our own, we learn
Mhm.
vocabulary. But actually, that immersion, not just in the language, but in a culture, is what
Yes.
helps you to really relate and create connections with a language.
You make a great point. And I wonder how you feel about this, because for me, when I think about English and then other languages that people may speak as their mother tongue, I feel like you should, or you might have a different personality in English, because we don't communicate in the same way that other people do. You know, we're not as blunt or as direct. We're not as straightforward if we don't like something. That's my opinion or a feeling about it compared to other
Yeah.
countries. And I feel like if you want to be comfortable and confident speaking English, you kind of have to adapt or adopt how we communicate. It's not to say that we have to be the same, but it helps you to feel the language a little bit more.
Exactly.
Yeah,
100%,
yeah,
100% agree.
yes,
And this is something I work on with my students. It's not just speaking. It's not
yes.
just vocabulary. It's the way that you present yourself is one of the biggest factors to how effective you're going to be in communication. The way that you present yourself, the way, even the fact of a smile, or the way that you word things, it actually goes a long way within communication. So
Yeah.
it's taking what we know and being the most effective with it.
You're so right. And I remember doing a little role playing class, and it was about clarification, asking for clarification.
Right.
So, would you go as far as to say that? In other words, I didn't quite get where you're coming from. And one student said it sounded passive aggressive, which
Right.
really shocked me. And we agreed to disagree, I guess, on that point. But for me, I said, if you say it in the way that you would in your mother tongue, I would I would feel that you're being aggressive in English. I would be a little bit put off by how direct you were. In this way, maybe I don't agree with what you're saying. Maybe I don't like what you're saying, but I'm never going to tell you in such a strong way. So just trying to open their eyes a little
Yeah.
bit to those cultural differences.
Exactly. And then the way that we present the language is essential. But yeah, Benjamin, thank you. I just looked at the time. I could talk to you for hours. I
What
find it,
is the time? I don't even know what the
I don't,
time is.
for me,
Oh my,
it's 9 minutes I honestly, I thought we'd been talking for about 15 minutes, but
me
it's
too.
flown by.
Oh
Maybe we
goodness.
can continue another time, but
Please.
it is interesting, isn't it? The element of social media um, and I think kind of what you said was such a lovely point, and that it relates to many things. Is just be consistent, be willing
Yes.
to change, and just go for it. Don't give up. I love that. But yeah, thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did.
I loved it, and I would love to be able to return the favor and have a little talk with you. Maybe we can follow that on my podcast at another moment if you'd love to. And I'm sure that we'll have some opportunities to work together in the future that people might experience or see.
I think we absolutely, definitely will. And it'll be my pleasure to join you on yours. But
Likewise.
thank you
Likewise.
so much for joining me, Benjamin.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So there you go. What a delight to have Benjamin on the podcast. Absolutely brilliant guest, sharing I thought some very interesting insights and very valid points that can translate to so many different areas in life. So thank you to Benjamin for joining us today. If you enjoyed this podcast, please don't forget to give it a like, subscribe, as we have many more episodes prepared and hopefully coming out soon, where we may have some more guests joining us. But thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all very soon. Have a good one, guys.